Hello again, it's Rick Miracle here with another video in this series, Freemasonry and Satanism, number 56, part 2. The Lost Star of Myth and Time. So do we have some kind of second sun, binary sun, coming closer to our solar system? Do we? Does this other sun have planets around it, like our sun has planets around it? And what happens if these two solar systems pass each other? Will there be any collisions? Any magnetic disturbances? Any electrical discharges? Any floods? Any earthquakes? Famine? Well, let's read this book and see if we can come to some conclusions. The precession of the equinox. I'll try to be short on these subjects, but anyways, as most people know, like the signs Aquarius, Pisces, Sagittarius, which are horoscopes on a monthly basis, there are also these signs in the sky, like you see here, Taurus, and the other one is Aries. So if you were to be at this particular rock 2,000 years ago, at this particular day, you would have seen Taurus in the sky. They made these kind of clocks here. And then 2,000 years later, at the same day, you would have seen Taurus down here, and you would have seen Aries. And 2,000 more years later, you'll see the next one slide into place. The precession of the equinox. So basically what we're saying is that Earth and the Sun and the other planets are traveling through space. And not to dwell on it too long, but let's just do a little picture show and see. I like doing the picture shows. So let's start out and talk about our home, the Milky Way galaxy. So basically, in space is a galaxy with a gigantic ball in the center, which could be a huge sun, or some scientists say a black hole. And then around the ball are these strings or belt of planets. Our Milky Way galaxy looks something like this. And Earth would be somewhere out here on the outer edge on one of the bands. And apparently, our solar system has a couple interesting anomalies. Is that, as you can see in the center, there's a snapshot right there, is a empty space. And then outside is a large band of rocks. And all of that, apparently, is right here in this little center. And this huge band here is even more rocks around the whole thing. So you got the solar system here, inside the band of rocks there, that's inside this huge body of rocks. And apparently we have a second sun here that travels and intersects with our solar system every 3,600 years, 3,600 years, so they say. And if they take a picture of the universe, which has many galaxies, you can see there are many galaxies, like the Milky Way galaxy out there. Here's a better picture to show you the galaxies. Galaxies upon galaxies. You can see here, you know, this could be the Milky Way here. There's another one here. Andromeda. I'm just giving names. but galaxies upon galaxies. That's a lot of galaxies. Anyways, our particular solar system, as you can see, the sun is probably 90-something% of the mass of our solar system. That is just a speck in the outer band of the galaxy. And of course, we all know you have comets that come through the solar system right here. And then you have a belt of rocks here between Mars and Jupiter. There's Jupiter here. And this supposedly was a planet many years ago, but when another comet came through, it hit the planet and created this asteroid belt that's in one of the paths where they think a planet should be. It's called the Kuiper Belt, as you can see here. And again, another picture possibly that could, what the Milky Way galaxy where we live looks like. So we would be out here in one of the outer bands, not in the inside. If you look at the Milky Way galaxy at night, like when I went to the Grand Canyon, you could see the whole band very clear. So my point is on the Milky Way galaxy, when a planet is on one of the outer bands, and it swirls around the center, as you can see there, either called a huge star or a black hole, you can see everything is in motion, like a spinning around of the center of the galaxy. An example of the Kuiper Belt. Instead of a planet going around the sun, a smashed up planet between Mars and Jupiter goes around the sun. So you certainly wouldn't want to fly a spaceship through there. Now just imagine, would you, that if a comet or another body was coming through and collided with this asteroid belt, I suppose that would send a whole lot of asteroids in a helter-skelter path, and many of them probably could hit Earth. Interestingly enough, galaxies move and galaxies collide. Here's a picture of two galaxies. So you could say, let's say this was the Milky Way and Earth was out here on the end, and this other galaxy is colliding with this one. I suppose that would cause a lot of disturbances. So galaxies in the universe move. Here's another galaxy. And then outside of all of our planets, where we have that big shell of rocks, that's called the Oort cloud, as you can see out here. So outside all the planets, there's even a gigantic belt or band, or it's almost like our solar system is inside a big egg. Here's another picture. The solar system is in the center, and the Oort cloud surrounds our whole solar system with all those asteroids going around, circling around. So you have the Oort cloud and the Kuiper belt, the smashed up planet, and then the surrounding mass of rocks and whatever around our solar system. And here they have a picture to show you where the sun is, in their theory of where the sun is in the Milky Way galaxy. And like I said, you know, we're out here on the outer band, and the whole thing is in a rotating motion, something like 250,000 years for the band to go around. Well, anyways, as the sun, carrying the planets, is moving with this band, it doesn't sit still. Apparently, it goes through the elliptic plane, bobbing up and down to the north of it and south of it. You can look these pictures up. When I went to the Grand Canyon, this is what I saw. I took pictures myself. This is not my picture. So there's the big yellow ball in the center and all the stars. And so there you have it. The Earth and the Sun. Here's the Sun, so they're saying. So the whole thing turns around, as you can see. So they say that suns like ours probably have a companion, a binary sun. And that the two suns do one of these motions. Pass each other, figure eight, or just... So I just thought a little background would be probably helpful for people to understand what our galaxy might look like and where we are in the galaxy, somewhere out here on the rim. And when you're looking at the Milky Way, you're looking through all the stars at the big yellow ball. And around our whole solar system is just a huge mass of rocks called the Oort cloud. So if we did have another sun coming through our system towards it, and it were to go through the Kuiper belt, that's the belt between Mars and Jupiter, where apparently a planet smashed up, or through the Oort cloud, I guess it's reasonable to believe that a lot of rocks would be comets, asteroids, whatever you want to call them, would be sent helter-skelter, and there might be a cycle where this disturbance happens. There's the solar system, the Kuiper belt, and the Oort cloud. Here's the Andromeda galaxy. You get the Hubble telescope, and if there is another sun that has a 3,600-year orbit, and is it going to come into our solar system? So now you got another picture there. You can see the Kuiper belt, and you can see the Oort cloud on the outside, and then you see the planets and the sun on the inside. Here's another picture just to show you that between the Andromeda galaxy and the Milky Way galaxy, there are many galaxies in our universe. So I suspect, here's some of the different shapes of the galaxies. So I suspect on these other galaxies there's probably life. Some people say that there's life on the second sun, Nemesis, or Planet X that comes with it, or Nibiru. And apparently they have some aliens living on that planet coming, Nibiru, Planet X, called the Anunnaki. And they're saying that something like this could happen. Could be a collision between planets. So I don't make all these pictures up, of course. I just go on the internet and pull up the Milky Way galaxy and images and look at the Yahoo picture site. And here's an interesting one of two galaxies colliding. So apparently it can happen. Stuff happens. Suns and galaxies are flying through the universe, moving through the universe, where stuff could get hit. So anyways, let's get back to this book with that little class on galaxies. So the sun going through and around our galaxy apparently does a precession where it goes in a full circle of view. Imagine taking a telescope and aiming it here, and then slowly aiming it all the way around. In 2,600 years, taking a little snapshot of every piece of the sky. That's a precession. So anyways, the ancients, the Mayans, the Egyptians, all the other religions apparently knew about precession and knew about a lost star coming through our system every 3,600 years, causing mayhem, Noah's flood, maybe the sinking of Atlantis, the mountain ranges everybody sees on a map or has been to the mountains. So anyways here, let me just read a little bit here. Okay, now that you've heard my explanation, and apparently the pyramids in Egypt lines up with Orion's belt here, you can see. That's Orion's star system. And they had that as a map to tell them when this 3,600 year period would happen. So the first written record, this is page 47, of the Yuga cycle appeared in the laws of Manu. Manu was the legendary ruler believed by some to be the founder of Hinduism. So even the Hinduism religion has this information. The 24,000 years of the Indian ages, or yogas, are divided into two halves. One ascending and one descending. So as the Earth and the Sun travels closer to this particular point in our galaxy, as it moves toward it, that would be ascending, and that would be what they call the Golden Age. And then when it moved away from that other sun or whatever, the center of the galaxy, intelligence and humanity descended. So there was a Golden Age, and it descended all the way down to the Dark Ages, and then an ascension back up to the Golden Age. That's what they say happens repeatedly. Within each 12,000 year period of 4 ages, not of equal duration, but in a ratio of 4, 3, 2, 1, the highest being the longest, with a starting point in Aries based on the autumn equinox, and the descending Sata Yoga, or Golden Age, lasts about 4,800 years. Descending Terra Yuga, Silver Age, 3,600 years. Followed by the descending Dwapara Yuga, I'm saying this wrong, I'm sure, or Bronze Age, 2,400 years, and finally the descending Kali Age, the Iron Age, the Dark Age. Then apparently Earth has recently went through the Dark Ages. It's like 600 or 700 years in recorded history. They're saying it lasts about 1,200 years, and that might be correct. That would probably be about 500 or 600 years after Jesus was crucified, and the end of the Roman Empire and the mayhem and everything in the world, the disappearance of the Mayans. It could have been from 300 or 400 years after Christ, or 1,200 years, and in the 16th century apparently was the Renaissance and the artistic period and the growth of the world. So anyways, some of this matches what they say. During this long descent, consciousness is said to diminish, causing the light of civilization to grow dimmer. I don't write the books, I just read them. But then, just like the seasons, the celestial cycle slowly reverses, and more light or wisdom gradually returns to Earth. That might make one wonder, you know, what's going on Earth right now with all these threats of World War III, sky spraying, HARP system, intentional economic destruction, and all kinds of devious and evil planning by the rulers of our planet to kill off much of the population. Do they not want the population to know this stuff? Are they afraid of the population waking up? and ruining their empire situation that they controlled through the Dark Ages? Just some interesting questions. The complete 24,000-year yoga cycle, composed of two 12,000-year ascending and descending. And here's a little picture. Hope I explained it good. But as you can see, we're supposed to be ascending now. This is 2000 AD. And this Iron Age here would have been the Dark Ages after the fall of Rome. Probably Jesus would have been crucified about here. And then the Romans might have left Egypt here. And maybe up this Golden Age was when Atlantis was around. And we had to leave Atlantis down into the Noah's flood. Down into the Hebrews leaving Egypt. And then the Dark Ages, and then we're ascending now back towards the Golden Age. Again, are the powers that be afraid of the people waking up, realizing a higher intellect? Is this why they're putting fluoride in the water? To suppress the intellect, the intelligence? Making people lethargic? Harvard did a study, the college, and they said in the cities where they put fluoride in the water, the IQ of the students in school was lower than areas where they did not put fluoride in the water. Look it up, Harvard fluoride study. And Hitler put fluoride in the water, so it is said in many books, of the prisoners because it made them lethargic. And they didn't need so many guards to guard the prisoners. So is somebody trying to suppress the consciousness evolution of humanity? So more in this book here, page 53. There's an example in this book on page 53 of this great cycle, the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age, which would have been the Dark Ages. It says here, perhaps the best of these is to be found in the book of Daniel in the Bible. The connection is so profound that it warrants a detailed look at the story. In this passage, we learn that King Nebuchadnezzar, I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, dream that Daniel interprets. King Nebuchadnezzar. Thou, O king, sawest and behold a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. That's Book of Daniel 2-31. 2-32, this image's head was of fine gold, his breast and arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, and his feet part of iron, part of clay. So were they describing this place where Earth and the sun gets closer to this other body or the center of the galaxy, and our consciousness rises and we're in a golden age, and you can ascend to it, and then after you pass through it, you descend and you lose that connection to the higher consciousness. And let's call it the godly connection. The reference to the great year is unmistakable, and the great image is the great year. Not only does Daniel mention the four ages by their Greek metallic names, he also puts them in the right order. The Golden Age is mentioned first and put on top of the image, the head. Silver a little lower, the breast and the arms. Bronze lower still, the belly and the thigh. And finally the Iron Age in the lowest portion of the great image. So apparently there are changes on Earth. Through Golden Ages and Dark Ages, So as us people smarter than me have interpreted and identified, and the religions tell the story. So with that said, let's continue more with the Zachariah Stitchin story about a possible return of Planet X into our solar system. In part 1, we read a little bit. So part 2, Zechariah says, the Sumerian lamentation text, that would have been the stones, indicate that the gods realized as soon as the explosion took place that a calamity would engulf summer hundreds of miles away. So as we remember on part 1, there was in the Sinai Peninsula the battle of some gods or aliens or people back then, thousands of years ago. There was some nuclear explosions, and they knew that the air would carry the nuclear radiation off towards the east, and the people in the way would be killed, of course, and the animals and plants and everything. So the text describes a hurried departure by the gods. So did they jump in their spaceships and leave the planet Earth? And they're warning to their followers to escape as well, not to try and to hide, because there was no hiding from the cloud of radiation, but to run away to the north and further east. Remnants led by their gods found their way in time to what we call Iran in India. Funny, Iran. You have to wonder why Israel wants to destroy Iran and is trying to destroy Syria right now with the ISIS people that pretty much, in a lot of people's opinion, work for the CIA, FBI, Pentagon, NATO, Israel, the banks, Zionism, the Illuminati religion of Lucifer worship, the Hollywood satanic fastest growing church in the country. All this stuff is tied together, I believe, with these activities. From golden ages to dark ages to the return of a possible planet Nibiru with the sun nemesis, planet X, and maybe the Anunnaki race of people. So they say. Just putting this book into perspective. Apparently some people with telescopes say that something's coming and they can see it. Alright, and to the Far East, thus the Chinese, Korean, and Japanese scripts that are based on the submarine cuneiform tablets, and to Eastern Europe and the land of the gods whose symbol was the double-headed eagle, that would have been Russia, along with the Danube, with the Hungarian legends and language like Germany, you know, Bavaria, Scotland, all the ancient religions, the Druids. Is all this stuff tied together? Do our politicians and scientists and people who run our world know about this stuff? There's plenty of books. I'm not making this up. If the Anunnaki colonized this entire planet, what other traces are there? That's Harris asking the question, the interviewer. And Zechariah says, everywhere, besides the lands and people just mentioned, there were the more distant Americas. In my book, The Lost Realms, 1990, dedicated to the Americas, I show connections. The evidence you find in the same gods, even if called by local tongues. The Egyptian Thor, the Mesoamerican Quetzalcoatl, that would have been down there in Mexico and Central South America, Quetzalcoatl, the god. The same legends of creation, the same astronomical recognition of equinoxes, solstices, as a guide to the temple orientations. So even down in South America, Central America, and North America, they had temples and orientated towards these Orion and different star systems, Sirius, the Palladians. Anyways, the return of Nibiru and the Anunnaki. Harris asked the question, what is your opinion of the return of Nibiru? Many people are becoming fearful of this. What consequences will this return have on the planet? Zachariah Stitchin says, Nibiru, which is the home planet of the Anunnaki, according to the Sumerians, has the greatest elliptical orbit that lasts by definition 1 year for its inhabitants, but 3,600 Earth years. So I suppose the question is, are these representation of the people that are coming? The Sirius book that we reviewed had the alien entities as fish people, aquatic entities. And as we looked at the last videos, there are big signs on the planet of entities that can only be seen from the sky. Interesting artifacts, idols, left in Egypt. Apparently, symbolism of people in some kind of ship that flies with the wings. Descriptions of something coming through our solar system. People saying that they have photographed it. There's the center of the Milky Way galaxy, and somebody says they've identified it right there. All kinds of books, movies, propaganda out there. Nibiru. There's Egypt below the Sphinx. Instead of looking like our bright yellow sun, is this the sun that carries Nibiru? And, could this be one of the effects that happens when it passes close by the Earth? It's like a little bit of static discharge there. And if you go on some of the telescope satellites and space websites, there's people who think they've identified where it is and where it's coming from. I said a lot of people smarter than me have looked into this. A lot of data out there. That's why I'm reviewing it. So people say that it is entering our system. A charcoal glowing kind of star, not like our bright yellow star, with apparently as it goes through space it appears to have those kind of wings on it. And here's another rendition of somebody's picture that they've probably identified in a telescope. So it makes one wonder, is there this celestial body? We know that comets go through on long orbits. Is this what the thing looks like? I just went on Nibiru images on the computer. I just copied all this. I don't make this stuff up. But apparently there's a lot of warnings out there. Could you wake up one day and see something like this? Does it look like this going through space? See the planets orbiting that bright white light? And are people photographing it now, down in the southern hemisphere? I don't know. Or is it all propaganda? If it is propaganda, that's a scary issue on its own. Why would people go through the trouble of making books? Herculabumbus, or the Red Planet. We'll look at that later, but let me continue on with Zachariah Stitchin's material. What is your opinion of the return of Nibiru? Many people are becoming fearful of this. What consequences will this return have on the planet? Remember, this is my Nexus magazine. Page 63. Nibiru, which is the home of planet of the Anunnaki. We just saw what they look like. Their images are etched in stone on the Egyptian hieroglyphics and elsewhere in the world. And the great elliptic orbit that lasts by definition 1 year of its inhabitants, but 3,600 years of Earth years. So, I've got one more page here. How Nibiru affects Earth is also not the same each time. So apparently when Nibiru, this planet and sun, Nemesis, and the other planets that it carries with it, intersects with our sun and our planets, depending upon where everything is in the orientation, whether they pass nearby or on opposite ends of the sun or whatever. Sometimes it's devastating and sometimes it's not so harmful. For I guess when the sinking of Atlantis came, if this was the cause, then that would have been a seriously devastating pass. Noah's flood would have been a pretty horrific situation with water splashing all over the world. What I am saying, it does seem like the powers that be, building all kinds of underground tunnels. This is not the only book out there. Since after World War II, and capturing the German scientists during a project called Paperclip. And apparently the Germans were in communications with some kind of alien entities and seriously involved in designing saucer ships and other kinds of weaponry and flying craft. And one of those technologies after World War II that was kind of rampant, the secret government's black op projects were into, was remote viewing by Tim Rifat, one of the People Insiders. Remote viewing is the ability to travel out of one's body to remote locations, reading the back of the book. Here, for the first time, scientist Tim Rifat reveals how the world's superpowers have used it for the last 50 years to spy on each other and to spy on we the people. At the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union and later the United States developed a new and terrible form of psychic warfare called psychotronics. The school of espionage included remote viewing, ESP, psychic spying, telepathic hypnosis, and even remote killing. Tim Rifat, go look that book up. We did one of my videos on that. David Morehouse, I have another one of his books. Here's a big one by Tim Rifat, that they wouldn't, you couldn't get it published in the United States. I had to order this from England. And there's David Morehouse and several other people. You can look up remote viewing and see some of these people speak live on YouTube or buy their books. So here they are doing remote viewing and leaving the body, and apparently outside of the body, time and space is not the same as on planet Earth. You can will yourself, say I'm in North Carolina and I wanted to see what was going on in Russia at a particular coordinates. I would sit in a chair and be hypnotized, or however they train Tim Rifat, David Morehouse, and some of these other people. Dean is another one. There's several people. Anyways, then I could get the coordinates from the instructor at this remote viewing school. And next thing I know, I would be over there in Russia, maybe at this port, you know, by the ocean, and a base underground where they were building submarines. And then I would look at everything, go back to my body and quickly make notes of what I had seen and turn it into my supervisor, remote viewing programs. And just like a dream, you know, if you have a very vivid dream and you wake up and you don't write it down right away, 10 minutes later you can't remember it. It's a fleeting thought. So my quandary is, and my question here, is when the government was into this remote viewing, did they go and ask these remote viewers to go forward in time and to see what events occurred? And if you watch the YouTube videos with remote viewing by Dean or Rifat or Morehouse, you will see, yes, they did. And apparently, sometime into the future, they've identified certain situations with regard to this book, Lost Star, and Planet X, which we are discussing, and Anunnaki. Did they know that there's some kind of planetary body coming with the sun, and that there would be chaos and havoc on Earth, destruction, earthquakes, volcanoes, poles shift, Noah's flood-like type thing? Why are they preparing? A lot of questions about craziness going on, and people want to know, why are they doing it? So let's get back to the Zachariah Stitchins in the Nexus magazine, so we can get back to the book and try to pin this down, what exactly might be happening. How Nibiru affects Earth is also not the same each time. One time we know it caused the deluge, Noah's flood, but no, not after that one, circa 1300 years ago. The leading searcher for what astronomers call Planet X, Dr. Robert Harrington of the U.S. Navy Observatory, agreed with me about where it probably was a few years ago. His sketch or sky maps is given in my book, Genesis Revisited. I ordered that book recently. I haven't gotten it yet. Genesis Revisited by Zachariah Stitchin, 1990. I also provide the evidence of the discovery by IRIS infrared astronomic satellite. Some of those pictures we looked at, I showed you. A satellite launched by NASA that twice traced the planet in 1983 by infrared, by heat emission, not by light reflected. So those who need to know have known at least since 1983. So those who need to know have known since 1983, according to Zachariah Stitchin, publisher of many books, well respected and well known. Is something coming? See the second son? When can we expect it? These are pictures you can go on the YouTube, Nibiru images, Planet X images. These are people's, I guess, pictures with their telescopes. What to believe, you know, what to believe. They got plenty of books out there. And, you know, are we to say this is a similar... Is this what's happening? Two solar systems are about to collide. Does our sun have a binary sun? Has it come through the system before? Are these people from there? Do they come back to enslave the earth again? And have they already sent their scouts ahead of time and determined there's too many people on planet Earth, and they just don't want the responsibility or headache to take care of that many people. So they'd like to see the people destroyed. Is that the Planet X and the wings where their big body in space is flying? I don't make these pictures. I just go on a website and take them down. There's plenty of YouTube videos about this. I'm hoping I'm making a more simplified and coherent. Is something coming through our solar system? Or are the powers that be fabricating the whole thing? And for what nefarious reason would they do that? And why would they put the descriptions of this interaction, our solar system and this body coming through? As you can see by the red band here. And there maybe is Nibiru right there. Why would they put it on a French dollar bill? Are these good questions? Why? I mean, if it's all propaganda, why all these books? Why all these... What reason would they do all that propaganda? All right, back to Zechariah Stitchens here. I also provide the evidence by the discovery of IRIS, the infrared astronomical satellite. We read that. The scientists who need to know have known since 1983. The return of the Anunnaki and the return of the planet do not and cannot coincide for reasons of space travel and trajectories. I thus believe that the prophesied return or second coming is now applicable to the Anunnaki. So what's this have to do with the Bible and God and the Antichrist and the return afterwards of Jesus Christ? There is no doubt from NASA's own photographs from the 1970s that there are artificial structures on Mars other than the face. I include such photos in Genesis Revisited, that's his book, that it did have and still has plenty of water on Mars, and that it even had seas and lakes, and that it had an atmosphere, Mars. So the Sumerian assertion that Mars served as a way station on the way from Nibiru to Earth, which when I wrote The 12th Planet in 1976, Zechariah Stitchens, the Phobos incident, that's one of the moons of Mars, when in 1989 a Soviet spacecraft first photographed the shadow of an elliptical orbit on Mars and then was destroyed by a missile fired from Phobos, the moon of Mars, one of the moons. I wrote then that though it may not be the Anunnaki themselves who were back, it was their emissaries, robotic artificial beings. I wonder if that would be the little grays and the saucer UFOs that were sighted after World War II and the 2 nuclear bombs exploded in Japan, when the UFO and saucer and base ship sightings went off the chart. And the U.S. Air Force and President and Senators and Representatives from 47, 48, 49, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. Look these up. There's plenty of books. Speaking of that, let me take another break. I have many of these books. Actually, almost 100. Here we have one, Whitley Strieber's Hidden Agendas, Dark Object, published in A Maritime UFO Files, 2001. UFOs Past, Present, and Future, Robert Eminger, published in (1974). some pictures from the early rocket ships of UFOs that they saw in space in this book. (1974). Descriptions of sightings and of entities seen. 1974. I'm going to be doing more videos on the UFO thing. Behind the Flying Saucers. Frank Scully. (1951). Like I said, after World War II and the nuclear explosions, saucer sightings were off the chart. The U.S. Navy and the government and Kennedy, who was a representative from 53 and then a congressman up to 1960. So 14 years he was a representative and then a senator one term before he was president. He would have certainly known all about this because they were having congressional hearings and the sightings were off the chart from those years when Kennedy was a representative and then a president. 1969, Is There Something Up There by Dale White. I collect all these UFO books and read them. So, yeah, they've had sightings, and I looked at these books to find pictures. This weather phenomenon is known to meteorologists as perihelia. So they have bright lights that you see up in the sky. Some people might identify. Here's some more pictures of, they say they were balloons, and these were the saucers they seen. Those saucers don't look like balloons to me. Is there something up there? 1969. Oh, here's one here. Some of these are pretty valuable. I have to keep them in nice little plastic baggies here. Let's see, what's this one? Behind the Flying Saucer Mystery, George Adamski. He was a famous UFO author. Published in 1967. So when did we go to the moon? They said 1969. Let's see if he's got any pictures in here. I don't see any. Behind the Flying Saucer Mystery. Since that fateful day in 1952 when he first made contact with a man from Venus, George Adamski became one of the most controversial authorities on flying saucers. In this incredible record for his further experience with the men and machines from outer space, Mr. Adamski tells for the first time about the brothers from the cosmos who now live and work among us undetected. So let's just try to finish up the Zachariah Stitchins on Planet X here. The return of the Anunnaki and the return of the planet do not and cannot coincide for reasons of space travel and trajectories. There is no doubt from NASA's own photographs from the 1970s that there are artificial structures on Mars. We read that. And it had water and atmosphere. And the Phobos incident where Soviets sent a satellite there and it got shot at by the Phobos moon on Mars. And probably the Anunnaki are not here yet because their planet's not here yet, but they sent probably the gray aliens, which are bio-robotic entities. Is that a possibility? The main discovery by me is the belief that while others refer to all this as mythology, I say no, these are records and recollections of what actually happened. And my recent discovery has been this, that every year, every month, sometimes every day, as our science advances in space, in astronomy, in geology, and in biology and genetics, I discover more and more collaboration for what, as I understand it, the ancient people knew. So this insanity happening on Earth, you know, the Georgia U.S. Guy Stones, put up there by, I believe, the Rosicrucians. There's a little plaque that says R.C. Christian, Rosicrucians, get it? And it says they want to reduce the population to 500 million. Did these emissaries, after the 2 nuclear bombs in Japan, the flying saucers who came to Earth, make a determination that 7 billion people were too many, that they wanted the Earthlings to reduce the population? Is that why we're having all the wars and planned World War III? Sky spraying HARP systems, Monsanto, Fukushima, chemicals dumped in the Gulf, killing all of the fish and animals and plant life all over the planet with the polluting activities of the powers that be, and doing it all in disguise, calling it accidents. When in fact it doesn't seem like they are accidents. They want to take the guns away from the people, fabricated Sandy Hook shootings, Boston bombings, 9/11, and murdering all the Arabs in the Middle East. Does all this have something to do with the return of the Anunnaki? Planet X's arrival, biblical activities and prophecies are coming true? Is that the case? The message is we are not alone. The DNA on Earth, which is the basis of all life from microbes to, I'm going to go to page 82 here. We're almost done with this. Humans is the same as on Nibiru. Genetically, we are akin, this is Zacharias Stitchens speaking. Genetically, we are akin to the Anunnaki from Nibiru, for as the Bible summed it up, we were fashioned by them in their image and in their likeness. Our wars to consider latest events are similar to their wars. Both wars on Earth and preceding wars on Nibiru. And since I believe the biblical prophecies, and I think they are universally valid, I have no doubt that we shall one day do what the Anunnaki did and come to another planet supposedly for a selfish need or reason and end up doing there what they did here. Cause life to evolve in a manner similar to ours. Create civilizations there, repeat the cycle, because it is all part of a grand design. Destiny was predetermined, fixed, unchanged. That man is mortal was destiny. How man conducted his life between birth and death, and how he would die was fate. So you can have destiny, but you can determine how you live your life and your fate. After your spirit leaves this body, will you have to account for what kind of person you were? I suspect so. A destiny that could be changed or bent by man's behavior, free will, and circumstances. The same applied to planets, which they considered as living entities, and to the whole solar system and to stars. There is a predetermined destiny, but within a changeable fate. We are a part of it. We are not alone in our solar system. We are not alone in the universe. And the interviewer, Polaya Harris, is an Italian-American photojournalist and investigator reporter specializing extraterrestrial phenomenon, and has authored several books. Her 2003 interview with Zacharias Stitchen is extracted from her book, Connecting the Dots, Making Sense of the UFO Phenomenon. Anyways, look her up. that's my story there that I got out of Nexus. I'm putting the puzzle together like maybe you are. And then we're deriving and steering around this book, trying to make sense out of this book. So there was Daniel interpreting the dream of the king who was dreaming of the Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, and Iron Age, which would have been the Dark Ages. And apparently, as we know, the Mayans had their pyramidal temples. The Mayan aligned many of their buildings and temples with the solstices and equinoxes. Over generations, they developed the intricate and sophisticated knowledge of astronomy. So why were all these cultures interested in astronomy? Were they aware of the return of the Anunnaki, if that's the case, or aware of the return of a binary star nemesis carrying other planets like Nibiru? The long cycle calendar, page 64, marked time over thousands of years, followed the transition from one great age or sun, as they called it, to another. The age of the fifth sun. If what the Mayans say about the age of the fifth sun is true, how might we experience this fast approaching transition? Will there be a sudden shift, or will it be more subtle? Even today, we see signs of accelerated development in almost every area of our life. Outwardly, technology is advancing at incredible rates. Remember when I did the video on Nikola Tesla's book, that he said that he had dreams and images of entities that came to him and told him of these technologies. The sun sets at different points along the horizon throughout the year. A lot of people know that's true. Depending on summer or winter, the sun can be at one end or the other because the planet is tilted going around the sun. Most people know that. Alright, but if the ancients are correct that precession is due to the movement of the sun through space, then it is logical that our Earth would be carried through regions of space that might in some way affect the ionosphere, magnetosphere, atmosphere in general, and this might affect man's consciousness and otherwise produce the seasons of the great year. As we will show later, brain function and consciousness can be altered by electromagnetic fields. We already know that space is full of such fields, because every star produces a massive one. Indeed, it is the electromagnetic spectrum of our sun that keeps us alive. I think that'll be enough for this video. As you can tell, this is part 2. There's going to have to be part 3. I hope you're getting a handle on what might be going on, what they say is going on. From all kinds of books published over the years. Alien sightings. I have many more of these books we're going to look at. Astronomers. Scientists. Preparations by apparently the U.S. government and the world powers, the United Nations. Underground cities. Remote viewing. They can see in the future, in the past. What do they know that they don't want us to know? Thank you for watching my videos. Rick Miracle reporting. Hope you're enjoying my book reviews and my ad-libbing and photo displays and my attempt to try to put the puzzle together. Thank you.